ITC surprisingly becomes the 7th company in India to cross market cap of 6 trillion rupees. Once a laggard, now a very prominent player in the FMCG business.
Sure, Shweta. So, again, ITC is also a very interesting story. And if you look at how the stock has moved, it's moved from about 89 rupees in 2009. I'm taking a 15-year period. In 2009, it was trading at about 90 rupees a piece or so, 89 rupees. And yesterday, the stock was trading, it closed at 492 rupees. So that is a 5x jump for anybody who had invested in ITC and stayed invested in ITC for 15 years would have created wealth five times over.
Five times, absolutely.
Right. So that's a massive jump. Now ITC also in between, if you remember in the year 2020, 2021 was completely range bound. And that was the period in which, whatever you did, the stock was not moving beyond its range of about 300 rupees or so.
Okay.
This, despite the stock seeing, let's say, peaks of 342 in 2017, the 2020-2021 period saw ITC being completely range bound to a level of about 300 or so. And this became a subject of memes across the board, that you had memes being made on the ITC stock, which were difficult for a non-investor to understand. So I would at times call up my analyst friends and try and understand from them, hey, what is this meme? What is it trying to tell me about ITC? And that's when I realized that it's a stock which is completely range bound. And there was no movement on that stock despite whatever was happening, including COVID, right, where we saw that the only thing moving was FMCG. The only sector that was delivering was consumer products, food, beverages. And ITC has been a very centralized player in the FMCG, in the food business. And food was doing extremely well during the COVID period. But ITC stock refused to budge and it stayed completely range bound. And that's when I think there were talks that, Sanjeev Puri, after YC Deveshwar, the legendary YC Deveshwar, Sanjeev Puri has not been able to steer the company into new territories, hasn't been able to add the kind of diversification that happened in a 10-year, 15-year prior period. But I think all those fears have now come to rest over the last 2 years, and we've seen new product launches from ITC. We have seen the food business expand. We've seen, of course, the cigarettes business expand, and overall inflation. So inflation in food, inflationary impact on consumer products as a whole has led to higher revenue directly for these companies. And that has resulted, again, this diversification and increased prices has swelled up the top line and the bottom line for the company, that right now we are looking at a market cap of about 6,12,788 crores. This, of course, is as of yesterday. Let's try and bring up how ITC is trading this morning. And yeah, ITC is one of the very few stocks which is in the green, up about 1%. So I think that valuation of 6.12 trillion would have increased by the second decimal point a little more this morning.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at the business portfolio of ITC. Currently has FMCG, hotels, paperboards and specialty papers, packaging, printing, agri, a very diverse portfolio. But one portfolio that stands out is the tobacco business, which is where ITC continues to hold a very dominant position and also drives most of its profit from its tobacco portfolio. I want to understand, what is the division like between FMCG and tobacco? Which of them is the growth driving?
So I think I don't have numbers handy right now as I speak, but I think ITC draws a chunk of its revenue, its profitability, as well as ire from the tobacco business. So it's a business that has been ridiculed. It's a business that has been overtly priced, overpriced, heavily taxed, and yet it's a business that ITC has not been able to exit, and I don't think the numbers will permit ITC to exit the cigarette business or the tobacco business as a whole. So in terms of market division between these multiple businesses, I don't have those numbers right now, but it's fair to assume that if the tobacco business was to be de-merged or if the tobacco business was to be taken away from ITC, then ITC would perhaps not be in the Sensex 30 pack. It would not be among the 30 most valuable cannibal companies.
I'm looking at data that we have as of 3rd of February. ITC's revenue from cigarette business rose 16.7% from a year ago period to 7,288 crores. So a substantial chunk of money that ITC earns through its cigarette business. And cigarette volumes is growing at a rate of 15% or more as of February of this year. Other businesses, of course, FMCG, where a growth of 18.3% was posted, and I'm talking about these numbers are coming in as of my assumption is this would be the third quarter of financial year 23, where FMCG sector clocked a growth of 18.3% rise in revenues to the tune of 4,841 crore rupees.
And then, of course, you've got the hotels.
And the hotels.
And
hotels is a massive business for FMCG.
ITC has, of course. So I think I would assume that its food business, agri business, as well as hotels would command a lion's chunk. And the next obvious bet, I think, is going to be tobacco.
Whether you like it or not, whether people like it or not, ITC continues to grow, and on the back of course, its growth in FMCG, tobacco and the hotel business.